My name is Greg Messer. I'm the owner and managing director of Fixed Price Granny Flat Sydney. Basically my history is I began renovating houses in the early 1990s. Over the past 12 or so years I have developed a fixed price building system which I use to deliver great granny flats around Sydney, and also within a 2-hour radius of Sydney we build. Now I've only got limited time up here today, so if you have any questions after the presentation, we're in stand 113 around the corner and I'll be available there to answer any of your questions. So basically, yeah, I was renovating houses in the early 90s. I made plenty of mistakes. Through that process I basically developed a system that seemed to work, and now I use that same system to build granny flats. So basically, to let you know, granny flats are a booming industry in Sydney at the moment, and have been for the last couple of years since the regulations have been relaxed. So last year there was a 65% increase in granny flat approvals across Sydney. This is expected to rise to up to 300% in the next 2 years. It's very exciting, and there's a lot of reasons for granny flats. If you're not considering a granny flat, you may well be in 20 minutes time. So basically there's two types of approval that we go through for a granny flat, and that is either complying development or council. And I'll just tell you a bit about the difference. Basically, if your property comes under the right requirements, we then go through what we call complying development, where we get a private certifier to approve the building application, and the private certifier will then do all the inspections as we construct. So as opposed to a council where we have to lodge a DA, and the process is about 6 or 8 weeks, and many times we get another list of requirements for that development, and that can drag it out for another 6 or 8 weeks. But sometimes we have to go through council. In this particular shire, the regulations are basically that if you've got a 450 square metre block of land, that's the minimum you require for complying development, up to a 600 square metre block of land, we can construct under complying development. The requirements are that you have to have a 12-metre frontage to your property, and then there is a 50% land to space, floor to space ratio, which means the existing house as well as the granny flat can't exceed 50% of that size. That also applies to properties that are 600 to 900 square metres. Once again, a 12-metre frontage is required to go through that process, and a 50% floor to space ratio to a maximum of 380 square metres. And then once again, there's also, if you go over between 900 and 1500 square metres for your property, there's then a 40% floor to space ratio to a maximum of 430 square metres, and a 15-metre frontage would be required. So in that, if your property is outside of those limits, we then have to apply through council. So it doesn't mean we can't do the development. We more than likely can, and we're pretty good at what we do, so we know where we're going from the start. So there's lots of reasons to have a granny flat, of course. The obvious reasons, obviously, for elderly parents, to keep them close to you. Children, you want to keep children at home instead of moving out, that's good too. And in the last 12 to 18 months, the big attraction of a granny flat is basically adding value to your property and achieving passive income. And I'll just tell you, the cost of a granny flat is less than what you would realise as rent in a rental. I've got some slides coming up of some jobs we've finished. We've just completed a granny flat at Pendle Hill. Now that property is on our website as a walkthrough, and there's also a testimony from the customer, but basically his property was valued at $650,000 about 3 or 4 months ago. We've built a granny flat there at a cost $125,000, one of the more expensive granny flats we've constructed. That was done in brick veneer with a lot of extras, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But that property has just been valued at $840,000, and we handed the job over last Monday, and on Tuesday he'd already had a tenant lined up, had 3 or 4 tenants. That's very, very big demand for granny flats, and he's getting $405 a week rent for his granny flat. I think in this area you could expect to get even more than that. We have a lot of clients elderly clients that actually move into the granny flat and rent the main house out and achieve even more of a return. So basically, Yeah, investment now. A lot of our clients come to us to assess the property before they purchase, and we do a fairly thorough investigation of that property, and advise them about what they can or can't do with it. So we do that a lot with developers. A lot of developers now buying properties specifically for a granny flat, and the rental return for the two properties is excellent. And you can check with your local real estate in this shire to see what you may get for your granny flat. But it'll be definitely is a positively geared project from the start. So basically, there is a lot to consider when you're going to build a granny flat. Now, just to let you know, we're not a very big company. We're a small company, and I'll tell you now, nothing against big companies, but at the moment, the housing market is probably under a lot of pressure. So one thing we do too is we don't build anything without our contracts are designed so you don't pay for anything until we get to a certain stage through the development, and that protects everyone. It works quite well. I'm going to just talk about some of the granny flats we've built. This granny flat here was built in Ross Street, Parramatta. That's a fairly basic design. That's the floor plan. This is what we generally start with when we're talking about a granny flat. We'll start with this design. 9 times out of 10 we will customise the design to suit the particular block or the requirements of the client. And 9 times out of 10, yeah, we change them around. We do L-shaped granny flats, and I'll go into all the reports that we can do on your behalf in a moment. Just another thing that not many people may know about a granny flat. 50 square metre granny flat is a 1 bedroom, a 60 square metre is a 2 bedroom. Now, one thing a lot of people don't know is that if you have an attached garage or you have a veranda, that's not classed as living space. So you can have a 60 square metre dwelling with a veranda and an attached garage. It still comes under complying development for a 60 square metre development. Obviously, the garage or the veranda can't be greater than the 60 square metres of the dwelling it's attached to, but we do a lot of those. They are thinking of changing that. I think they're talking about changing that because a lot of customers actually enclose the veranda when we've finished and put another bedroom, and that's nothing to do with us, but that does happen. This particular granny flat was built at Collerton. That's 60 square metres with a veranda. That's the floor plan. So that's a 60 square metre development with the veranda. Now this one is the brick veneer 2-bedroom granny flat we've just completed at Pendle Hill. It is on our website, fixed price granny flat, sydney.com.au. I do a walkthrough of this granny flat, show you all the upgrades, and there was a lot of upgrades in this job. Basically, there was tiling throughout the whole granny flat as well as the veranda. Obviously upgraded to brick veneer. This was a $125,000 project. That's the floor plan. As you can see, once again, 60 square metres of living space with 44 square metres of veranda. So that's actually 100 square metres under the roof and was approved as a 60 square metre dwelling. This is another one, just another one to show you that the private open space there will be under the main roof, and that's once again classed as 60 square metres. This granny flat you can see up on the screen now is one we're about to start in President Avenue, Miranda. Once again, 60 square metres with an attached garage and a veranda, over 100 square metres of dwelling. That has been approved under complying development, 10-day approval. We'll be starting that in the next 2 weeks. We're also doing a couple in Sylvania. Any of the granny flats you see up here, most likely you can go and have a look at those. We send clients to the granny flats we've built, and there's a fair few around Sydney you can see. They're also on our website, so you can have a good look at those as well. Now the reports, a lot of people don't talk about the reports that you need. Now these following reports are basically required, A, for approval, and B, for us to give you a fixed price for your contract. So I'll go through the reports. Basically, this is a site survey and a contour plan. These are rough estimates of what you would be charged, and some people get charged more than this, some people get charged less, but I can tell you that the survey we do is a very detailed survey. It includes the contours, the boundary lines, everything we need to basically give you a fixed price and also to get approval. We do a soil test that not many companies will do. Well, the reason we do a soil test and a wind loading certificate is that we actually find out what is under the site. We deal specifically with the site we're building on, so we know what's under the ground and we can inform you about it. That's built into your fixed price as well, and I'll come to what we actually do include in our contracts in a moment. We do all your drafting, all your designs, including revisions, so they're done to a full working drawing that's acceptable by council or a private certifier. We do all your engineering, slab or pier engineering, we include that. The hydraulic stormwater reports are also a report that we do. I'll just run through them. Basics, bushfire assessment level. Now in this shire, a lot of properties do fall under, are in a bushfire area. So we do a report. It basically gives us a value, a rating for what area you're in, from a 12.5 up to 19 as far as a flame zone. And when you get up to that stage, the granny flat can be quite an expensive project. So we do inform you about that. We do all this before a contract. The following reports are just what we also submit to council. So waste management, statement of environmental effects, landscape design, sewerage diagram, colour schedule, Sydney water certificate. Then we lodge it into the council, or we prepare it for a private certifier to approve. That does not include council fees, and generally that's because council fees can vary between councils. Generally they're $2,000 to $3,000, which will include all your inspections. So the total value is $12,645. Most companies won't talk about these reports. They just sign you up, generally just sign you up on a contract. They've already factored into the contract these reports, but generally a building contract will be full of variations that won't include connecting to main services, electricity, gas or water. It won't include excavation, it won't include piering. There's a lot of it. It can basically be like signing a blank cheque, giving your builder a blank cheque, because you don't know what's under the ground. The reports that we do give us that information so we can give you, so you can make an informed decision. So we do all this before a contract. The other thing to bear in mind, you know, if you're going to buy a granny flat or build a granny flat purely on price, the granny flat that you end up with may not be what you actually plan to get. So at Fixed Price Granny Flat Sydney, we do things a lot differently to most companies. We don't know. We release those site reports after we do the first 4 reports. We then give you a fixed price to buy a granny flat, have a granny flat built. If you accept the quote, we then go into a formal contract. If you don't accept the quote, we release those reports to you. Now, most companies, the companies that arrange those site reports basically own those reports, and they generally won't release those to you unless you pay a fee. We don't do that. If you don't go with us, there's no weasel clauses. We just hand those reports over to you, and you can still use them for your approval to get a granny flat built. So these reports we do are the only way to deliver a full 100% fixed price. I've spoken about the variations that can be in building contracts. The other thing too, if you do need bank finance, they require a fixed price contract. The last thing you want to do is start your project and then they may hit rock, or they may hit some sort of site problems. There'll be a variation in your contract. You won't have any control over that, and that can blow your budget if you've borrowed the money. And I've seen that happen. So our fixed price granny flats, our tender that we provide to you before we go to a contract, will include all these items. We include all this in our price. Connecting to the water mains, the electrical mains, upgrading your existing meter box, that can cost a couple of $1,000s, and we will tell you about that before. All your site foundations and engineering is done. We include lodging to the council or private certifier. We include all excavation, all piering. We include the concrete slab, obviously, basic certificate, all your plans for council. We include kitchens with appliances. All these are on our website, all a detailed list of what we do include. We include all your electrical and plumbing rough-in, water tanks, painting, installation, tiles, rubbish removal. There's very little we do not include in our price. So what does all this really cost? It's over $12,000 in value. and that's a genuine cost. That is what people would pay to try and organise this. The other thing you've got to bear in mind, if you want to do this yourself, you actually have to go and seek the services of a licensed surveyor. You have to engage the services of a licensed draftsman, an engineer, and if you're going to do the soil test, you have to get a geological expert to do that as well. So that's very costly. I can tell you now that the $3,000 we put up there for the plans to get drawn, some people pay $5,000 and $6,000 for that alone. So yeah, so our pack we offer to our clients, yeah, it's under $10,000, it's under $7,000. Basically, what we offer, all those reports we do for you for $4,950. So basically, this is what you get. We'll run through it all again. All those site reports, we include all those in that price of $4,950. After we do the first 4 reports, we then offer you a fixed price, then we go into a contract. So total value $12,645 for all that, and we do that for $4,950. Now, just before I finish up, I just want to tell you there, if you go to our website, this free report, I've written this free report. It's excellent reading. It's how to confidently plan your new granny flat building project without the risk of costly budget blowouts. And in that, I list the 7 big costly mistakes unprepared granny flat buyers often make and how you can avoid them. So if you download that, it's excellent reading, and we'll give you a lot of information. There's also a smartphone code there for if you want to scan it. The brochures are at our table. So yeah, that basically sums up my presentation. If you want to come and have a talk about your specific site or your granny flat project, we'll be available for the rest of the day at stall 113. Thanks for your time, and look forward to helping you with your granny flat project. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Greg. Folks, give a round of applause for Greg Messer for Fixed Price Granny Flat.
Yay.